That's that now.
Okay. We are set. Okay, this is the Tuesday, August 19, 2025 work session for the Yahats Planning Commission. My name is Mark Sakamoto. I'm the chair. And I'd like to call the roll right now. Mary Abby,
Present.
Lauren Dickinson,
Present.
Jolene Goslin,
Present.
Greg Hogan. And let's see, Catherine Gunther, planner,
Present.
Jackson, recorders here, and Dan Fleischman is also on, I see. Okay, good. All right. So for the work session, we've got a couple things to talk about. Why don't we actually, Lauren, why don't we start with you? You have an update for us on the noxious plants.
Yes, as everybody knows, we've been tasked with updating the invasive plants ordinance. I've received some information from Ron Simons, who's kind of heading that up with Parks and Commons. They gave us a plant list and some links and stuff like that would be very helpful. I met with Craig Birdie last Monday, and Craig had put together a sample ordinance, which is based on the last ordinance. It changes a few things. The lists of plants will change in both in fashion and how they're inserted and the plants themselves. But the rewriting of the ordinance should be pretty easy. It's basically almost the same as the last ordinance. So, and I have a sample of that last ordinance. So we've been, Craig said that it was a full go ahead according to him and the city council. So we'll just await Mark setting it up in the meeting agendas and get started on it at the appropriate time.
So maybe next month, our meeting, we'll start getting down to the brass tacks. One thing this is still fresh in my mind, I think I saw something about whether the list should be actually incorporated in the regulation or be as a separate attachment or appendix. And I think it would be better to have a separate list. That way we can update it without going through a whole rewrite of the regulations. So
that's kind of what Craig's feeling is also. And one of the reasons for that is that the list can change itself, but it can also be referred to with a separate link without having to read the ordinance. So if a homeowner wanted to go to it, they can find the link directly to which plants in my yard are invasives.
So and one other thing I wanted to get, because this is my first reading, and we can talk about this in detail, but just so I understand where we're going with this, it sounds like from reading the reg that it's not simply having a plant on the list in your yard is not necessarily a violation, because it says it has to be, if it's a health hazard or if it's spreading to natural areas or whatever. But if somebody has a plant on the list that isn't doing those things, would that still be a potential violation?
Well, Craig said that it should be to the discretion of the enforcement person.
Okay.
And obviously, if something's taking trees down or killing trees and being covered, that's one thing, but just have it in your yard. And this is Craig's feeling as well, is that just having it in your yard isn't as an important thing.
Okay.
And there are several varieties of plants that if they're well contained with edge containment, can easily be a plant in a yard. The other issue that we will need to discuss probably is those exceptions. And Craig brought them up. What would happen on a slope?
Oh,
You don't want to tell somebody to take out,
Exactly.
every plant on the slope and then have a challenge with it. So part of our discussion is going to be, things like that what exceptions would be reasonable. And again, I think that this would, from what he said, it would be in the discretion of the enforcement person.
yes, Catherine.
One of the things that we do with the riparian corridor plants, because we have really strict rules about that,
That's part.
like to Whitewater. We, in that case, I can't remember if it's Soil and Water Conservation District or an Oregon State program where we basically pointed to somebody else to say, this is the authority. So maybe taking your idea of not hard coding the list into the code, of saying, here's where you find the list, and then let somebody else be the authority on what the new noxious and invasive species of the day are. So we could literally just defer to the experts in that. The other thing, because steep slopes, and my phone blew up after this last round of letters went out, because people said I have, blackberries, but if I take all the blackberries down, I've got a 25% slope in my backyard, and I'm not prepared to put anything back in its place in a timely fashion. So we might want to direct people to some advice on erosion control, other things that come into play. God, I hate to say this word in Bobby's presence, but wetlands are another issue that we don't always want to recommend the same approach to weed control in wetlands as we do elsewhere. So if we could do our code and then sort of point to whoever the authority or authorities are on all the subtle nuances of noxious and invasive, or as somebody emailed me about the other day, the obnoxious and evasive weeds, then we can probably be done with revising our code for a long time to come.
Yeah, there is another section of, that's municipal code that covers the riparian areas.
Yeah.
So, there's some plant references within that section as well, although there isn't a list
Right.
associated with it. You
And
would
then on
have to
the
go on to the
permit
state.
itself, we actually direct people
Yeah.
to some authorities, because I'm not a botanist. Like I got into it with Quiet Water where I had two different sides of an argument presenting very convincing evidence of why two courses of action were both the best for the health of the river, and being able to point to somebody else like Soil and Water Conservation District and say, these guys know what's best, and let them be the deciding voice, not our poor code enforcement guy.
So then whenever it's arranged to be within our agenda, I'll give it to Kimmy and she'll put it all on everything that I have is currently as research on the agenda or the packet.
Just a suggestion, if you do that separate plant list, maybe put a reference with a picture. So
That's
people
been
can-
recommended and I think it's an excellent idea because most people don't.
What it is that you're talking about,
Yeah.
because oftentimes just a names sometimes are pretty interchangeable, and if you use, the scientific name, people might not be able to figure out what it is.
It would be handy. I'd give one to my lawn guy. This is what I want you to do.
Yeah, no, I did. And that was a suggestion earlier. So I think when we get around to that discussion, I think that's one of the things that we'd recommend.
I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking, as far as how much is too much of these things, if you have one little patch of something here and there, if the code enforcement officer has to trespass to find it, you're not going to get a letter. So it's when it's become obvious, when it's a threat to the neighbors. But if there's something, if we have to go digging through the brush to find the offending plant, and maybe that's how you really eradicate them, is by getting them while they're young. But
I mean, hypothetically, if there was a house out in, I don't know, Gimlet Lane,
thank you for choosing
that happens to have two pampas grass plants in front of it. But that is just, that's it. They're not spreading. I'm just wondering if that owner would have to pull those plants out, and much to the.
Again, I think the idea is that the enforcement person would have the discretion.
Mhm.
I think the pampas grass is a peculiar challenge.
Yeah.
And how that might be treated, might be within his discretion if the problem with pampas grass is it spreads and the root structure can be like 3 or 4 feet deep. So removing it is difficult, but I think maybe we get some input from the enforcement person as well and see, how would you approach this particular problem that appears to be a challenge.
Okay. Okay, well, next work session, we'll start getting down to the details on that.
Who's the enforcement?
David Fortmeyer. And he's been with us, what, a year now, Bobby? And he's a public utility worker as well as our code enforcement officer. So he's out there all the time. He's driving up and down every street. It's proven to be a good mix. Because that's a lot of the time consuming part of the enforcement is just being out there. But if he's reading meters or,
But plant expert?
no. And, and that's why I was saying like,
Discretionary for that.
He's gonna have to take a crash course in botany.
well, this is, just kind of telling him what I know from wearing that hat briefly, that I'm not an expert on that either.
Right.
And
They were,
yeah, you can look them up, you can have an app on your phone, but, we don't expect him to be a botanist.
then the discretionary aspect of it is worried because.
Well, and sometimes some of our problems are the less known. I think we all know what Himalayan blackberries look like, but I remember when Scotch broom first became an issue here and we didn't know what we were looking at. And it took over really quickly, like maybe, 2 seasons, and we were deep in it. And in that case, the thing you think to do is not necessarily, it's kind of the worst thing you can do. That it thrives when you chop its head off. So there does need to be some ongoing education, but if he has it, the Soil and Water Conservation District, I keep mentioning, this is their thing. And if you look on their website, there are a bunch of healthy young people hanging from trees. They're not afraid to get out there in the field and they've helped a lot with things along the Yahats River. In fact, they had a program for a while where if you would sort of volunteer to let them help you groom your little stretch of the river, they would come and do it. And I think people learned a lot about how to care for their little chunk of riverbank.
You talked about volunteers. I approached my neighbor across the street, Wally Orchard,
Mhm.
and I think everybody knows Wally and knows that he knows a lot of plants.
Don't ever get between
And-
that guy and a noxious weed.
That's for-
So he offered to help us if we needed to in any of the plant designations and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily is gonna need to be part of the code, but the enforcement officer is gonna have to make some choices as far as priorities. I mean, there's a choice between knotweed and Queen Anne's lace. I think it's pretty obvious
Mhm.
which one he should pick, or if it's cow parsnip or something. So I think he's gonna have to come up with some sort of priorities about what he's gonna attack first and write up people on first, because some plants is not as critical as some others.
Well, he's a quick study and we can certainly get him some help.
I mean, there's Craig. I can't think of
Well, I'm thinking for some of these other agencies too that make this their life's work. But I like the idea of keeping the code kind of as lean as possible.
yeah.
And then we can tweak it as we meet new invasives.
Mayor Birdie's proposed code changes kind of does that. And I think by taking the plants out of the ordinance itself, by that virtue, it shortens it immensely. And then if we can refer to links or other portions of the ordinance, I think it'll make it even simpler.
Okay. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, then let's talk a little bit about ADUs. I had sent an email to Rachel at Cascadia Partners with a couple questions. One about why do some cities have parking requirements and some cities don't, when it says in the regs clearly that you're not supposed to have parking requirements? And her answer was basically probably the cities that have parking are under 25, is it 2,500? Is that
35 is like the critical,
the population at 20? If you're under 2,500, you can basically do whatever you want with ADUs.
or nothing at all, yeah.
Nothing at all, exactly. So that, she said that's probably what it is, because it's pretty clear from the regs that you're not supposed to be regulating
There
parking.
are also some additional rules that apply in the Portland metro area and some that apply in the Portland metro area for people who want particular kinds of tax breaks. So Portland started doing it before it was fashionable, if you will. And there were certain ways you could get a significant property tax break. But then you had to play by their rules, and those were by the neighborhood pretty much when it came to things like parking and income level of people who could occupy them, things like that. So there are a lot of variations on the theme out there.
Yeah, yeah. And then, I asked about incentives, whether they were familiar with any city that had success with incentives. Because I've heard lots of cities have different incentives for building ADUs, different programs, but I was wondering if anybody had a lot of success doing it. And her answer was basically that there are several cities that had waived service charges. But the two that she was aware of, and I think Florence was one of them, have discontinued that, which implies to me that it wasn't a very successful approach. And then Dan, in response to that email, had a suggestion. And Dan, why don't you talk about what you suggested for a minute?
Sure, thanks. My recollection of what I suggested was that particularly for system development charges, that you look at reducing your SDCs for an accessory dwelling unit, that rather than waiving them as some communities have done, I'm rather uncomfortable with the idea of waiving SDCs completely, because any new development has some impact on the demand for new facilities or expansion of existing facilities. But to recognize that a 1-bedroom ADU is going to most likely, on average, use less water, have less sewer demand, generate less traffic, have fewer occupants to use your parks, etc. And so just to have a reduced system development charge that reflects the smaller size and the less demand that an ADU would create compared to a standard single-family home.
Do we have a reduced size requirement on ADUs?
Yeah, there's a maximum size. I think the pro forma was like 300.
There are a lot of, when you say we don't have anything,
Yeah,
including.
No, but if we
Including
did.
any one size fits all plan for system development charges. And I've been talking with public works guys about this for a couple of years, and in our situation, we almost need to go on a case by case basis, because our average household size is so small that if we have a 1-person household and we're adding a studio or a 1-bedroom ADU, that's not adding, they won't even meet consumption for our current base rate. So that is something we've been talking about, but there may be other situations where it is significant. So I don't think we may be able to approach that kind of thing just by square footage. We may
Right.
not. We don't fit the normal demographic, and then a lot of our primary residences that the ADU would be hanging off of are maybe only going to be occupied a small portion of the time. It's interesting to run a consumption report when we do the billing. And look at how many people are billing zero.
Right.
They're still paying that base rate. They're still paying for their 2 units of water, thankfully.
Right.
But so we'll have to do some looking at the data there. And obviously that's in our case, one of the few ways we can make it more attractive. If we're gonna charge somebody $18,000 in a system development charge to add an ADU, that'd probably that'd be the end of the number crunching for me, I would think.
I think, yeah, for a lot of people too. Yeah.
So yeah, we still have a lot of those things to figure out. And because we're under that 2,500 square foot number, the state's not dictating any of that to us.
If we knew that it was gonna be occupied by full-time residents, that's one thing for a reduction, I guess, but I don't know how you could do that.
Well, I'm thinking of something that the city recently did that had kind of an interesting and I would say significant impact was on tweaking the utility rates for vacation rentals. So if I could correct that, they no longer get the 2 units in the base rate, which is not a lot of money. They're like $10 a unit or something, but it was enough to get some people's attention and say, first of all, am I really using my property that way? Like, do I want to keep my vacation rental license when I'm not renting it because it's going to cost me $20 a month for water I'm not using in the first place? So there are things we could do, and it may take
Yes.
us a bit to figure out. Just looking at a couple different.
I like that. I like thinking that,
I've got all that data.
how to encourage it, but also to make sure that it's.
So like, I live alone and my cat drinks out of the toilet. So we don't use the 2 units that come free. So I think I'd be a little miffed if the city said, not only do you have to pay you have to pay a new system development charge, now I have to pay a new base rate. Because it's not just the SDC. Now I have $115 a month base rate as opposed to that just costing the $10 for a unit of water the person's using. So it shifts the whole calculations on whether or not it's feasible for one old lady living alone. But we've got all that to play with. That's the good news.
Right.
And I think we've got the brains to make it work.
Right, and if I may, a whole nother category of regulation that will greatly impact people's willingness or financial feasibility is not just these types of fees, but also what your public works department's design standards require. Because my experience in Staten, where essentially the Public Works design standards required a separate water service and a separate sewer lateral for the ADU, and just the cost of doing that made it infeasible in most cases. And so to have that discussion with your Public Works director and city engineer as to how necessary is that in the case of an ADU as opposed to a duplex.
That's interesting.
Well,
So
yeah, so I don't know that we're looking at, like, for an internal conversion, we certainly wouldn't even want that.
Right.
Because that just complicates things. But yeah, I don't know on the scale that we're looking at. Like I said, I've been talking with the Public Works Department for a while because we do have just so many different ways this could happen here. And I think they're all going to take some looking at, but we'd sort of like to minimize, first of all, we like to minimize any of those private laterals, because that's the thing that when it breaks, we have to rely on homeowners to fix. So we try in general to minimize the number of additional connections to sewer and water. So if it was on a single system development charge coming off a single service, it's simpler from the perspective of the Public Works guys for sure. Because then once that water goes through the meter, it's my problem as the homeowner. So, but, I think once we start to look at how we want to approach some of these things, and again, the internal conversions, I think are going to kind of write themselves. Because we don't.
Yeah, the internal conversions shouldn't be,
Yeah.
that's kind of, it is what it is as far as the hookups are. But yeah, if it's a separate building, I guess if it's a private connection, then there won't be a meter, right?
So if it were the typical, what you think of as the, in-law, the granny cottage in the back.
Yeah.
Don't say that anymore. then obviously that would require some new connection to city services, whether that was tapping into the existing, grabbing the incoming water service at some point, splitting it to the two.
Putting it at T.
Same with sewer, but anything happening on that side of the property line would be the homeowner's responsibility. If we're talking about a whole new meter,
Mhm.
then we've got a whole new, we've got a whole new account to bill, we've got a whole new meter to service, we've got, as I say, not just the system development charge, but a new base rate. So it's now $115 a month, whether water is used there or not.
Mm.
And there may be some that warrant that. But so I'm sort of looking at it from that as the extreme up here, and the internal conversion where it's literally like putting a bedroom addition or maybe modifying an existing bedroom that's already in the house, where you're not adding any additional anything to the city's load.
Well, maybe we just leave that up to the homeowner if they
I mean, I
want
think
to.
you give
If
them.
they want to pay for it or a separate line with a separate meter, they can do that.
So we don't require that. For example, Dan mentioned duplexes. We don't require two services for a duplex. But if you're renting it out and you want to charge your tenant for water, good luck unless they're separately metered. So I've owned some duplexes over, I did the math. For me, it was like the payback for putting in the second meter. I'd rather just include water in the rent.
Yeah, just $50.
It's common to sub-meter on one line can be sub-metered to an accessory.
But that's a private thing.
It's a private thing.
Okay.
And we don't even require it. Well, the condos across the street, they pay for their water and sewer through their HOA fees because each building is on one giant meter.
Hmm.
So their water is included in their monthly HOA. And that made more sense to the guy building them at the time to do 1 2-inch meter instead of 3 5/8 inch.
Okay.
So I think we can give people options, and usually there is a choice that makes sense, right? That you say, okay, this is the upfront cost, this is the additional monthly cost. Where's my break-even point? I think it'll work itself out.
Okay. All right. What else? And maybe this is just me, but I had always been under the assumption that we would more than likely be requiring parking for an ADU, but after, I forget when we had this conversation, but as somebody pointed out is, we don't, if you have a home-based business or bed and breakfast, as long as there's enough space in the driveway or wherever for off-street parking, we don't require any additional parking. Right?
Yeah, we require additional parking in that if you have the 2 spaces that are required for the residents and you
Right.
want to do a home-based massage business,
Yeah.
then you guys say, how many clients are you gonna see at once? How many additional spaces do you need? So we don't allow people to double count those.
Right.
Same with the bed and breakfast, but you could take a real similar approach with the ADU that, hey, you've got the 2 spaces that are required for the residents.
Mhm.
And then you can either create another space over here, you can gravel a space next to the garage. I mean, as long as it could be accommodated. The question, I guess, is whether or not, so currently, if you put a second dwelling, attached or otherwise, we would require 2 more parking spaces.
Right.
So that might be onerous. If you're putting in a 400 square foot, do you need more parking than you need ADU?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
that's kind of what it comes down to. You have more square footage of parking than you have living space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we do have nuisance ordinances that could take care of, I mean, that's kind of ultimately what we end up doing with the home business. Is we say, okay, you told us you were only going to see one client at a time. Now the neighbors are saying there are 5 cars spilling out into the street. You can yank a person's business license because they've violated the terms of their agreement. that they made with the planning commission. So there are ways we can enforce if, let's say, for example, you said it's based on the square footage of the ADU. You only need one space up to X number of square feet.
Mhm.
Because I do think it's kind of crazy to require two 9 by 18 spaces for 200 square feet
Yeah.
housing.
Yeah.
We did have a situation, I think, with that employee housing over here where the apartment was smaller than the parking space required. But so you could say up to X number of square feet, one space is adequate. If there are problems with that, then again,
Okay,
our complaint
okay,
system would take care of it. And again, it may take some fine tuning.
okay.
I think it's gonna be a difficult conversation because one unit can accommodate either one or two people. Each of us might work separately and have two cars. But in the same regard, there might be one person that only two. So it's gonna be a challenge, I think.
I think though, approaching it like we do with the home occupation, where you basically have the property owner making a promise.
Yeah.
I've got this, this is how many people are, because I have a choice when I rent to somebody, not to rent to somebody with 3 cars and a boat. So if somebody came and said, I love this little cottage, I want to rent it. By the way, here's my horse trailer. I could say not going to work. I have one parking space. So you could put the burden on the property owner to make it not be a nuisance. And most people probably don't want a nuisance in their own yard.
Yeah.
I say most because I know some who don't care.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking, can we make a rule saying that they can't be vacation rentals?
Yes, I think that is the intent. I'm,
It shouldn't be.
So that would require, I won't put Bobby on the spot by staring at her. Yeah, so right now it's in a separate section, it's in Title 4, all the rules that govern our vacation rental, but there are certain things that certain standards you have to meet to qualify as a vacation rental. Off-street parking is one of them. You can't apply for a vacation rental license if you don't have the required off-street parking. So if the city decided that these were not to be used as vacation rentals, we just would add that into Title 4 in the code, saying the ADUs don't qualify for vacation rental licenses. Maybe you want to say ADUs and properties that host ADUs, because otherwise I'd be smart and move into my ADU. I mean, you'd want to be real clear.
oh, I see.
We got everything on the same tax lot,
Yeah, okay.
buttoned up. They're sneaky, but it comes in handy sometimes.
But the short-term rentals are limited by a number. So,
Exactly.
I mean,
So by just saying, if
I'm sure that
if this
some ADUs
circumstance
are
applies,
probably-
you don't qualify to apply for the license, then the
No.
problem's solved.
some ADUs are probably currently being short-term rentals.
We don't have any.
We don't have any?
Well, not legally.
Not legally.
And let me think if we we do have some that are grandfathered in.
Yeah, that's
There
true.
are a couple of,
There's one on King Street, isn't there?
there is in fact, up above, and we can always tell when there's a new tenant because it's the only thing that turns over there. I don't even think there are any of the ones that are legit. You'd have to be pretty bold to come in and say, I'm gonna take my illegal ADU and put it on the vacation rental
Well,
wait list. And somebody might do it, but I don't think we had that happen. Of the handful that are sort of grandfathered in though, oddly, I don't think, like that one on King Street's a monthly rental, always has been. They sort of use it to have somebody keep an eye on the main place.
Bobby?
We are in the process of upgrading, updating our vacation rental code right now.
Okay,
And we definitely could look at adding something like the ADUs are not allowable for
Okay, yeah.
short-term vacation rental.
mhm,
On that, every time anybody applies to have a vacation rental license, they go through an inspection. And
okay,
then every 5 years of them having a license, they go through an inspection too. So that could be something that we look at.
Okay.
adding to that as we're in the process of updating that anyways.
Okay.
What about?
Bobby,
reverse,
as you-
though? Saying, I've got an ADU and I move into it in the house. As a vacation.
So we would have to be, if we're not specific, and I'm not sure that we are specific enough now in the vacation rental code to say this license only applies to this portion of, because we just don't have that happen. Right, so, but we could plug that hole too.
We currently do not.
Yeah, but we can think sneaky. We can get a step ahead.
So,
People do interesting things
They
and
do.
figure out amazing ways around just
Making
about
money.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so if you obviously are gonna be updating that code, that will be done, I'm sure, before we're done. If we have anything later, would it be easy to have it wrapped in?
no, I think I should wait if we want to add something to it.
Okay.
The fully push it all the way through. I just to do it as a one time versus
Update
part
it.
here and then part there, just because it's kind of a big thing to go through the two public hearings for city council and then also getting it onto our E-code and everything like that. We go
Okay.
through the whole ordinance process.
So I don't really understand why we're looking at these issues. We've got to limit on the number of vacation rentals.
Mhm.
Why do we care whether they're ADUs or not? So saying,
Mhm.
Well, isn't the purpose of an ADU supposedly to increase the amount of housing that we have available for people?
Full-time housing.
well, if it takes up a short-term permit
Yeah,
from somebody else,
And Craig,
that other house.
Yeah,
and there are people who say that any housing at any price point is part of the solution. And I think that's kind of what
Yeah, I understand why it's
But
different.
in this case, if we're making some concessions, like, we're bending a little on the parking, or we're not charging an additional system development charge, I think then it's reasonable to say not intended strictly for your profit.
Right, so
And the
there
more
should be
concessions we make, maybe the more you want to make that argument.
But if you have an ADU. I don't
Right
see-
now, if you have one, I don't think there's anything, right now, I don't think there's anything prohibiting it. I just can't think of a single one. Neil, you've probably done more inspections than I have, but I peek in windows. I just don't think I don't think we have that happening now. But I think if we did try to find ways to make it attractive for people to add this second
Yeah.
unit,
If we offer,
saying, oh, and you can't use it just to make a killing on Airbnb is maybe a reasonable thing.
yeah,
But I agree, when people squawk, this isn't affordable, well, someone's living in it, and that someone who's living in it is driving down the price of the place they were gonna live in. At this point, we need housing at every,
yeah. you
Every
can
price
increase
point.
the number of vacation rooms by happening to be.
I don't know. I mean, we're trying to sell this to the community as part of a housing solution.
Yeah.
And if there's going to be any resistance to it, saying that it's part of the housing solution may ease that resistance. But then if we turn around and say, but if you want to make money off of it as a short-term rental, you can do that. I don't know if that's gonna get in the way. I understand what you're saying, and yeah, it's like a fungible, whether it's this house,
Yeah.
so somebody lives here, or it's an ADU and they live there, it's an extra housing unit, but it's also something special. We're doing this to make, sort of changing the rules specifically to try to get more housing. And so to me, it kind of defeats the purpose of it to do that. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of demand for it, but I'd hate to use that up. Start using up ADUs for short-term rentals. I mean, that kind of, to me, that defeats the purpose.
Well, I kind of agree with Craig. I don't like adding rules onto things. If there's a limit of 125 or whatever the short-term rentals are in the community, and that's not going to be looked at as increasing, and there's already a list for that.
Mhm. No,
I don't know.
As a
That might
practical matter.
actually, it might actually, some people might say, well, you're limiting my potential, even though I'm not looking at that. I don't like having, but we haven't really given anything up yet either. If we do give up something, then maybe there's a way to counteract that with, because like Catherine said, there's requirements for short-term rentals for parking and all these other things. So there are other requirements for that, and there are fees that go to the city for that. So just my thought. I don't like adding
Okay.
more than we have to, but yeah.
Yeah, Roland, did you want?
My name is Roland Valran, excuse me, and I live at 970 Highway 101 North. This whole ADU thing is the reason I'm here. The development next door to us, which are these 4 townhouses with 4 utility rooms behind the garages.
Mhm.
At this point, are becoming 8-unit rental building. And so I'm wondering, this is either ADU or not, or is it gonna be rentals? And then the city, if it's rental, should be taxing them as rentals. But it's at the time, and I believe that was the meeting at March 18th, that the units were, it would be 4 townhouses. And that's how it was approved. Well, at this point, it's being utilized more like 8 units. So I'm wondering how does that get managed, not managed? Then you get into the parking that's been brought up. That parking area has still not been finished. The other part is they were all supposed to be doing backfilling for the height of the building, which has yet to happen. So legally, they're too high. They're over the 30-foot limit. So it's more about managing that. And how do you plan to manage it? And how do you even penalize people if they don't follow it? And what type of units are they becoming? So I think there's just a lot of things if we discuss in ADUs. Also is what do they become? And how do you manage your parking areas?
Well, sit down and close that can of worms, will you? There's so much to unpack in there and all of it was discussing. And one of the challenges on any of this discussion is going to be enforcement.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm sort of, the fewer rules we make, the less we have to enforce.
Right.
It's there, someone's living in it. It checks the boxes, we're done. But if we start, Portland went way extreme at one point. There were, income verifications people had to meet to live in them. They had, and because Portland was giving so much in terms of tax incentives, it became a full-time job then, managing how these places would be used. And I got you next door down there, so I don't need, but if we had 50 of those, I would need 50 Rolands. We can't have something that requires that level of enforcement. And maybe that is we're kind of seeing some things in a microcosm there that we're going to see some of the potential pitfalls or abuses that might play out. Those are not ADUs, so I want to separate that from the discussion of the legitimate legal sanctioned ones. Yeah, and that's enough of that can of worms.
They're kind of 16 parking space.
Yeah, my question is more about managing and being on top of it and really holding people accountable when they ask for certain permit and it gets approved as that, then it gets used differently.
Yeah, Roland, just a question. Is there a perceived parking problem related to what you described as an 8-unit SRB?
At this point, there's no designated parking, so they are
Parking
parking
limited.
within the property. So they're okay from that point of view.
But
They're 16 cars.
but they are technically in,
Picture of a couple of Sundays back, where it was totally like a used parking lot there. But, no, it's, at this point, they have not designated any real parking areas, but they are parking on the property. So they're fine on that.
I mean, they're technically in violation of the zoning in that building. Because that area is zoned for, the building is zoned for 4 living units.
Correct.
And there are 8 living units there now.
Incorrect. No, there are still, and I'm not there at 9 o'clock at night, seeing the coming and going. They were built as 4 units. Back to this obsession we have with number of kitchens. There are 4 kitchens, 4 units. There are also some things that a person could do with a utility room in an owner-occupied house that they maybe couldn't do otherwise. So it's the idea of how many leaseholders do we have per unit? If I want to rent a room in my house out to somebody who doesn't need their own kitchen, there's no city rule that says I can't do that. I can have a roommate who pays me rent.
Right.
That doesn't make me in violation of the R1 zone. If I'm a property owner who starts carving that R1 property up and renting it to 3 or 4 different households, then that's a different situation. So this is where I'm not kidding about the can of worms. There's a little bit of all of that going on there. The builder, the developer himself is occupying one of those units as full-time residents right now, or at least one of 2 full-time residences. That sounds right. Wrong. I think he's still in California. Wife is here. She's living there full-time. If she wanted to rent a room in her house, that's a different situation than somebody carving those up into 3 or 4 different leases or even 2 leases.
Then you
And
get,
offering them
you get
separately.
into that particular owner has 2 condos, townhouses. But occupying one townhouse, renting the other townhouse, and renting the
And I don't
utility rooms.
know how much, so this does become, I guess I object to there's not any violation of the zoning there. And Mark, I think that it was you I jumped on.
Yeah.
There may be enforcement issues. But then that's a conversation for how do we tighten up the
How
enforcement?
do you manage that?
But what was approved, what was built, all in compliance with the R3 zoning, but then how do you keep it from morphing, sorry, Neil, into, wherever it goes from there? And every time we pass a new scrap of code, that my mind goes right to enforcement. I mean, that line in the code is only as good as our ability to enforce it. So I guess this is sort of an argument for Craig's, let people do it anyway.
There should be code somewhere.
But I don't know if I won't take any more time from the work session. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything? Was there something you wanted to talk about, Mary? I
Well,
forgot.
basically, what I did was I put in the actual state code.
Oh, yes.
for
that's right.
ADUs, and I thought it was really important that we all take a good look at it, because if you don't know what the code says, then it's kind of silly to talk
Yeah.
about how you're gonna do it.
Yeah, so did everybody, I'm sorry, did everybody get that or was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
in this-
okay.
It's in the packet.
Okay, good, okay. So, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, for state code, it's very simple.
Doesn't put a whole lot of onus on anybody other than if you have a population.
And it's been through, and maybe that's a good thing to point out. It's been through quite a few revisions since the first iteration, because they've learned a lot and just in those couple lines of code. And the tendency seems to be towards simplifying. So again, back to how do we make it kind of self-enforceable, governing, that I think when the state first started out and there was a lot of, and you'll do this and you'll do that, and then it was like, this isn't working. And Cascadia can probably speak to that because they've ridden that weird train to its current station. So they've seen a lot of what has worked and we're in a great position to benefit from that because all these other places, including our neighbors to the north, Walport just broke that 2,500 person number. So they were required to adopt some of this stuff in the first round. And I'm not sure it worked out real well for them on the first pass
Well, and
with things like parking.
if Lincoln County breaks 15, then everybody here has to do it.
15,000. If Lincoln County breaks 15,000 people, then
But they do now. Everyone's 15,000. It's 50,000.
The statutory provision regarding counties over 15,000 applies within the urban growth, unincorporated
Area.
Oh, okay.
urban growth boundaries.
Yeah.
We're under 15 now.
So,
We're weird because we don't really have much in the way of urban growth boundaries.
Yeah.
Our city limits and our urban growth boundaries tend to, so for the city of Yachats, our urban growth boundary literally doesn't exist. That would be that area where we start to say, oh, this is the direction we're gonna grow as we start to grow, which for us would be north. And then there's this sort of gray area that becomes a little bit city flavored, but still technically county, known as the urban growth boundary.
Yeah.
And Lincoln County we don't have these cities that are busting at the seams. So we don't have many folks who would fall into that. Dan, I'm not even sure if we have any. And that was part of what got us our first pass on some of this work with Cascadia was to sort of look at our buildable land inventory, look at our housing needs. That was sort of to determine, do we need one of those urban growth boundaries? Like, do we need to identify a direction that we need to start making sort of city flavor because that's where we're going to start growing? And they said, no, you get enough, work on infill, tighten up what you've already got. Don't be, starting to move towards your neighbors to the north.
I just want to add that I think that fourplex really puts a sour taste in the public's mouth in regards to those extra 4 units. It's just not what I envision at all when I'm talking or when we're talking about ADUs at all. I mean, it's just like the complete opposite for me.
but it is something that could happen. I mean,
The
we're,
cautionary thing about writing code.
yeah, it's
Unexpected.
it's a worst case kind of thing.
Yes.
It is a worst case thing, but unfortunately, when we start talking about ADUs or increasing density or whatever, that's what people are going to see. That's what people are going to think about. And
Lauren has his hand.
Well, I just had a comment about that. I think one of our biggest issues on the planning commission was not having a finite site plan,
yeah,
because the parking is the big issue on that. And without having a finite site plan that we could count parking spaces and that kind of thing, to me, that was the hardest difficulty in that particular review. And,
Okay.
I'd hate to see that happen again.
okay. All right, I'd like to take a break before we start the public session. So why don't we take a brief break now and reconvene at 3:00.
I didn't go on this link here,
Oh,
Okay, we're reconvening the planning commission meeting to begin the regular meeting, the public meeting portion. So first of all, are there any announcements or correspondence that anybody wishes to talk about on the commission at this point? Okay, all right, citizens concerned, so now we are opening up the meeting to anyone who has something they wish to discuss that is not currently on the agenda. You have 5 minutes to say whatever you like. We only ask that you give us your name and your address. So is there anybody in the meeting room that wishes to say something right now?
Not online.
Not online. Okay, all right, so let's start with the public hearing for the variance for the Fletcher property. Before we begin, I am obligated to say something, so here we go. The public hearing for variance application number 3 VAR PC 25, Jonathan Fletcher applicant, to reduce the side and rear yard setback is now open. My name is Mark Sakamoto and I am chair of the Planning Commission. Our commission typically is responsible for 2 different types of land use actions, those which are quasi-judicial and those which are legislative. Today's variance request is considered quasi-judicial as it affects a specific parcel of land. The application is evaluated based on specific standards and criteria that exist in Title IX of the Yachats Municipal Code, and the Planning Commission is the final decision-making authority. Planning Commission may authorize variances from the requirements of Title IX of the Yachats Municipal Code, where it can be shown that owing to special and unusual circumstances related to a specific piece of property, strict application of this title would cause undue or unnecessary hardship. No variance shall be granted to allow the use of the property for a purpose not authorized within the zone in which the proposed use would be located. I said go down. As is the case with any quasi-judicial action brought before the Planning Commission, the burden of proof rests with the applicant to demonstrate that the circumstances for granting a variance as defined in the Yachats Municipal Code are met. The Planning Commission will hear from its planning staff regarding the application, from the applicant, and from anyone else who wishes to testify before the commission on this matter. The applicable review criteria for this application are found in the Yachats Municipal Code, specifically Chapter 9.60, Plan Unit Development, and Chapter 9.80, Variances, Section 9.80.020, Circumstances for granting a variance. Upon completion of the public testimony, the commission will close the hearing, deliberate among its members, and ultimately make a decision whether to approve the conditions, or deny the application. The applicant or any affected party may appeal the Planning Commission's decision as provided for in the Yachats Municipal Code. Does anybody here today wish to object to the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Take that as a no. Does any commissioner wish to make any disclosure or abstain from participating or voting on this application because A, a possible financial gain resulting from this action, B, you own property within the area entitled to receive notice of this hearing, C, you have a direct private interest in the proposal, or D, you've determined that you cannot be impartial?
I'd like to recuse myself from this issue. Primarily, I reside in Quiet Water, as most of you know, and even though the city is required to notify people within 200 feet, it still affects the people within my community. And then secondly, I've had considerable contact and communication with the Fletchers as head of the Quiet Water Design Review at the time. That would probably result that I would not make a ruling that would be, how would you say it?
Influenced?
Influenced by what I had seen.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
So that means you're not going to vote on what
That's
you
correct,
stop,
yeah.
but you can still talk about it.
I think that would be totally up to that, but my guess would be that I could answer maybe any questions about the design review that occurred, but it probably nothing on the deliberations.
okay.
I would say, yes, that is true, that, and if it makes you feel better, you can go sit over there. But some of what is particular to this comes because of quiet water design review standards. And Lauren has been my go-to person for that. Sadly, he's leaving me, or he's left me. So I think it's completely appropriate to ask questions regarding that
Design
process,
review related.
which is exactly why recusing himself from the vote.
Mm.
But you could be our quiet water DRC.
Yes, exactly, in the capacity, even though I am not a member of the DRC at this point, I could still relate what happened.
But some of my staff report came from, email exchanges about that process, and that process in particular as it pertains to the Fletcher property. So, and I think I can answer most of those questions, but that's who I would be asking if I had to say just a minute, I'll get back to you, would be Lauren. So.
Okay, that's good. Does any commissioner, aside from Commissioner Dickinson, need to declare any contact, written or oral or otherwise, prior to this hearing with the applicant or any other party involved in this hearing or any other source of information outside of staff regarding the subject of this hearing? If so, please state with whom you have had contact and what was said. Okay. To the city planner, has the commission been given all written testimony that has been submitted to date?
To the city recorder.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does the commission feel they have had adequate time to review all written testimony? You can nod your head, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Will the city planner please present the staff report, including a summary of the application, its conformance with the Yachts Municipal Code, and any staff recommendations for the commission's consideration?
Gladly. So this is not unlike several other side, front, rear yard setback variance requests you guys have heard over the last year, 2, 3. The main difference here is that the standards that are being asked to deviate from aren't the standards of the Yachats Municipal Code. They are the standards of the Quiet Water Plan Unit Development. So that gives it a slightly different flavor. When the property is in phase 1 of Quiet Water PUD, so when those lots were platted, the developer at the time came to the city and said, I don't want to do standard R1 lots that are this size, this shape, have all the standard setback and lot coverage standards. I want to create smaller lots, some with as little, as much as a 0 lot line setback. In exchange, commit to common/open space. So we have several of them around town, Quiet Water being the oldest. Overleaf Village, another example of the same design. So the idea behind that was to allow some flexibility in the design. Sometimes it allows you to plat the lots around some natural feature that you might want to preserve. In this case, we didn't know it at the time, but now we'd say the riparian corridor was well protected because of some of the design of Quiet Water. So what we're looking at now is not I want to reduce the required 5 or 10 foot side yard setback that the code mandates. I want to reduce the 0 to whatever foot. I wish it were as straightforward as our code, but setbacks that are required by the Quiet Water design. In this phase was approved back in the 80s and into the early 90s by the city of Yachats. So in your report where I would normally put the R1 standards, what I put are the applicable Quiet Water phase 1 setbacks. And in this case, we are dealing with a side yard and a rear yard. Get your page number here if you haven't found it. I know it's section B3.
Section is page 9, is it? Page 9, I think. Is that what you're talking?
The only thing you should be reading at this juncture. Page 8 of 11 has the, very brief, but these are the relevant quiet water setback standards. Is there on the bottom of the page in section 3.
I have a question about that. I don't understand. So this particular property is in lot 20, block 3?
No,
It's not.
it is actually lot 19, I want to say. So lot 20 has its own special rules.
Oh, okay, so
So
that's,
ignore that. That can say not applicable.
okay, all right.
So that would be an example of zero lot line.
Okay, all right.
Lot 20 has special privileges. It gets to build right out to the property line.
Okay,
So ignore that one. So of the
Okay, all right.
four salient points, only 3 actually apply to this.
okay,
So those are your setback standards that apply to this lot. And this is what the city approved that this phase of quiet water based on, that lots in this phase would meet these setback standards. So for purposes of your consideration now, this needs to replace our 20 feet from the street, 10 from the rear, 5 to 10 in on the side. These are the rules that we're looking to deviate from.
Question, just for the PUD, isn't it actually what we should be looking at is, are we violating the common space requirement?
There is no proposed protrusion into the common space.
Okay, so
So this would be the same as if
required in the-
somebody comes to us with a 50 by 100 city lot. Based on their building height, they're supposed to come in 8 feet on the side because they're going 24 feet in height. They say, I only want to come in 5.
Yes, I understand that. I was just wondering, because if it's a PUD, then there's a common space requirement and they're not encroaching on whatever was required in the common
We
space.
have some pictures. Don't want to put the applicant on the spot, but we spoke this morning and I think he's a couple of pictures that will show exactly how this,
No, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm making myself clear. So the PUD required a common space in exchange for the R1s. And so in the end, the common spaces requirement, 1 acre, half acre, 300 feet, whatever it is not being violated.
correct.
Okay.
This is all within the
No.
property line.
But,
Well,
okay,
so there are 2 types of property in there. There are the platted lots that are privately owned, and then there's the common or the open space. So everything that's happening within this application is happening within the property lines of that privately owned lot.
okay,
So the common space, the open space is untouched.
thank you. That answers my question.
So in the 4.2.2, the minimum separation of 2 feet for every 3 feet of height. That means there's a minimum of 5 feet, but if the thing is high enough, it has to be more than.
Separation from, yeah. And so our code is similar,
The
right?
separation is the same as the setback?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I say yes, like I was there when they wrote this, but that's the way it's been interpreted. And so our code is similar. You go 30 feet tall,
Yeah.
you gotta come the full 10 feet in. A lot of that, I think, as I mentioned in the staff report, has to do with fire protection. Taller the structures, the further apart you want them.
You analyzed all of this in your analysis of the.
Boy, I hope so. And, but what it comes down to, these several little lines here on the bottom of page 8 are the rules for this phase, the phase that apply to this lot. So what's being asked here, basically the combined front and backyard setbacks, combined 10 feet, that's being asked to be reduced. I've got a table here on page 9, where I've sort of told you what's required, what's there now, and what's being proposed. So a reduction, not across the board, because part of the hardship here is that nothing is square or plumb, or we have an irregularly shaped lot within a house that was put on it slightly askew. Rather than having, here's my front property line that runs at right angles to everything else in the world. Sort of got a little trapezoidal thing going on, and then let's put the house on at this slightly different angle. So the setback on this corner might be 6 feet, and over here it might be 12. And nothing says you can't do that, except it makes the planner's life miserable. So the standards that are being asked to be deviated from that bottom of page 8, table on page 9 that basically gives you, the reason there are two here, it gives you what's required by the quiet water setback standards. It gives you what's there now as the house without, sorry, the proposed addition, as the house without the proposed addition exists today, and then what would be the case with the addition. The two tables are there because quiet water doesn't necessarily interpret setback the same way the city does. And this is where I'm going to maybe rely on Lauren to talk a little about the history of this. We just tightened up our code on this. When we say the setback from the street shall be 20 feet, what we mean now is that from the street to the entire height of the universe, sorry, Craig, nothing will be in that 20 feet. Quiet water, it's a little more setback to the dwelling shall be this many feet. But decks and stairs and other protrusions into that aren't treated the same way we do in the city. Where we say a setback is a setback, and anything basically that comes off the ground, you need an exception if you're going to put that within the setback. So I did one chart here that shows if we measure it as the city would measure it, which is the stricter form, and that's the top one. That's asking for a minor give. And then the bottom one is if we say, well, we're going to ignore stairs and decks because that's pretty much what's being asked to protrude into this required setback. So if we say, here's the setback, but we don't care about decks, well, then there's really kind of no ask here. So kind of two ways you can approach it. One is a little minor bend. So you can see in these two charts, or if we are measuring to the dwelling, we're fine on the front. We're fine on the rear. Actually, wait a minute. Now I'm confusing myself. If we measure to the nearest, actually, we're pretty much fine. If we measure to the nearest structural element, which is the city's way of doing it, we are asking for a reduction on the side yard, in one case from the 5 feet. Currently, it's at 8.5 feet, and we're asking to reduce to 4.6. And then on the rear, the combined front and rear setbacks are supposed to total 10 feet. Also asking for a reduction there from a required 4 to 3.8 feet. So those are the two asks. So I guess the way to approach this first would be, well, first is pester me with questions about the quiet water PUD approach versus the city, if that's not clear. The process is the same. Consequences are pretty much the same. It's just we have a different set of standards that this property is being held to. Second is, which of these two measurements does it make sense to use, or does it really matter? Are we measuring to the nearest structural point the way the city would, or are we measuring to the nearest point of the dwelling? And this is where I think Lauren can shed some light on how it's been done historically. There haven't been a whole lot of these. These lots were platted. Most of these homes were built in the 80s. Hasn't been a whole lot of change. So it was done the way it was done in the 80s. We haven't had a whole lot of reason to revisit that or interpret it. When the city weighed in, it was to adopt these standards that are shown in the several lines in your staff report. So as far as how to interpret those in light of today, that's maybe where it gets a little interesting. But so in one case, there's basically, you could say if we measure the way it's been measured historically in quiet water, there's not much bend being asked for at all here. That we're gonna have some deck protruding into a setback, the same as we do with other lots. We'll have nothing protruding into the common area. We'll have some stairs protruding into the setback. If we measure the way the city measures, if you get a little tougher on it, then there is an ask here of a fraction of a foot here and there into the required setback.
I have two questions. One should be a pretty simple one. This lot is in the floodplain?
Thank you. So it is in the special flood hazard area. So a lot of quiet water is in a floodplain, but this one is in one of particular interest. So all of the fuss over the FEMA model code that we and everybody else if around here has been struggling with does impact this lot. So regardless of the outcome of this, there's still that obstacle to overcome before a building permit is issued.
Okay,
A separate issue, not for, and it's so unclear where FEMA is going with this. So this is sort of step one. Can the Fletchers build what they want to build? If the answer, according to the city's interpretation of the quiet water standards, would be no, then we're done. If this, like other situations where we say, I don't see a huge negative impact from reducing this set by this amount. If the variance is granted, then the next challenge will be to navigate whatever the floodplain requirements of today are.
Okay, but there's nothing, the fact that the property is located in that special area does not have any impact on our deliberations.
Correct.
Okay, that was my.
Correct. It may be that all of this is discussed and decided only to die in FEMA land.
You know, that's fine.
And one thing that I might say is that if you were to approve this, that you maybe approve it with a little longer window than the typical year, because nothing happens in a year. So if you were to approve it and then a building permit application is submitted, it might not be possible to get it through the FEMA red tape within the year. And I'd hate to keep chasing one after the other. So if the variance is approved, I'd say give it a longer leash so that, because nobody has a clue. About once a month, I get this part of the FEMA mandate has been postponed, or this is being modified, or this is being challenged in the courts. So that's a whole bunch of stuff that fortunately we can't influence.
Okay, my other question is more philosophical one. The concept behind having a PUD, the way I'm reading this, is that we're basically allowing this location to sort of set its own set of rules in a way.
We require that it meet some of the standards of the underlying zone. So I think of it sort of as an overlay.
Okay,
In this case, this was R1 zoning. So we say, well, it can't be higher density than the parent zone.
okay,
So you can't say, ooh, I want to do a PUD so I can cram 10 times more houses in. But what you can do is you can say, I'm going to make this part of it sort of high density, smaller lots, almost 100% lot coverage, very, very little in terms of setbacks, maximum lot coverage. In exchange, though, I will meet the R1 standard for the open space. I will meet the R1 standard for density with this common area.
so approving, if we were to approve this variance, how can I put this? That still falls within that concept of a PUD.
It would not change the underlying rules of the PUD any more than approving a variance for side yard setback in the R1 zone would change
Okay,
the rules of the R1 zone, right? We're not making any sweeping change. There's not even
So
really.
so we as a commission aren't under any, I don't know if obligation is quite the right word, but under any obligation to give special consideration to this property simply because it is in a PUD. That theoretically, we should be applying the same criteria to this property as we would for any property anywhere else in the city.
The latter part of that. And this kind of goes back to nothing, the sanctity of the PUD in terms of the open space, the common area, all of that was locked down when these lots were platted. So any flexibility that's being asked for is within that privately owned area.
Yeah.
And the rest is untouched, couldn't be touched. You couldn't grant a variance that would allow it to protrude
Right.
into that shared area because every property owner there has an equal undivided interest in that common area.
That's what's called a common.
There you go. So yeah, no, that's a good question. So basically all we're doing here is replacing the standards in the city code that would affect what happens inside that privately owned platted lot for the standards in the quiet water code, if you will, that say what should happen inside the four corners of that privately owned lot. Does that help?
I want to ask you about your tables.
Yeah.
The rear setbacks, less than or equal to 6 feet.
Are you looking at the top or the bottom? It's same.
Both of these say, what does that mean? It has to be.
Oh, well, so the rear setbacks, if you look on the previous page, the front and rear are set as a sum of the two. Right?
So
Combined front and backyard setbacks will be a minimum of 10 feet. So you could technically have 0 in the front and 10 in the rear. Or you could split it evenly and have 5 and 5.
that's when,
This is why thankfully we don't use these all the time. So I took the existing and I said, if the sum need to be, if the existing is 8, then the required for the remainder would be 2. Fortunately, we're not touching the front. In the rear, and if you look at, in your packet, there's a site plan. You pull that up, that's probably a good thing to look at that.
3.8 plus 4.3. Bottom one.
Let me find my packet here. Sorry, I can throw this up on the larger screen if that would be helpful. Hear people clamoring. So the rear setback would be the one that's on the bottom of your screen right now, or bottom of your page. And you can see because of the lack of squareness, plumbness, flushness, that rear setback as it exists today already varies from the
3.8 plus 4.3 is less than 10.
sorry, Kimmy, can I maybe share this? Let's do this real quick. I get it, Craig. I
Just trying to follow what you.
yeah, no, and it's a horrible way to I've done this. Let's make sure I got this downloaded. I was just gonna pull up this site plan
Yeah.
and blow it up a little bit.
Because there's two.
Sorry, nothing but the best on the city laptop.
Lauren, while we're waiting, I have a sort of an odd question. Is this shape of this lot an unusual shape for the houses in that area? That the fact that it is such an irregular shaped house, or is that pretty typical for that area, or is this an odd shaped lot? Is this truly a one-off?
There are three clusters in the lower areas of quiet water.
Can you share me?
These are all a part of the, what we would think of as cluster housing.
Okay,
And each of those three clusters, of which this is a part, the lots have no relevance to each other sometimes, nor to shape.
okay.
They can be trapezoidal,
Okay.
or they can
So-
be just all over the board.
So the biggest part of the variance is request is that there's something specific about this property that prevents that's different from the property surrounding it. But the fact that this is an irregular shaped lot is not an unusual thing for this area. Other lots in that general vicinity have irregular shapes.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So I just,
And then this one was sort of not squared with, if you pick a line, any line, but, yeah, you're right. They weren't all laid out like graph paper.
well, because again, the only reason why I bring it up, because in the variance, it says something about there, and I don't remember the exact terms, but that there's something about this property that's different than the other properties. And that's
Ordinary and exceptional circumstance.
right. But in this case, the shape of the property itself is not exceptional. But there are other properties in the same area that have I don't know what the term is, a non-square shape, right? They don't have nice parallel edges or whatever.
It's not the only one, unlike if you look at some of our older parts of town where literally 50 by 100 lots.
Yeah, yeah.
Street was laid out first and then at
Yeah, everybody's
90
kind of-
degree angles.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's not that kind of neighborhood.
Okay,
So you're
okay.
right about that.
Okay. Just was wondering. That's okay. I just, anyway, go on, Ken.
Common areas of where setbacks were tall.
Okay, so yes, you can see me. So this dotted line here basically be the standard setbacks if you split front and rear. So rear yard here, front, side and side,
And the common areas.
and it's this area right here that's
Around.
All around it, yeah.
all around it.
Around, okay.
So this solid line right here is basically the area that would protrude into, in this case, side yard setback and rear setback. Now, the rear setback is complicated because it doesn't say the way our code does. It doesn't just say 10 feet. It says the rear setback, rear and front together shall be a combination of 10 feet, but we don't have a straight line anywhere. Right, so I can't say, well, the existing, so if you look at the front, this is the existing front. Right, and on the other page, we actually had the measurements here, so it's 3 something feet here, it's 8 something feet over here, because it's not even a straight line in the front. In order to come up with the required rear setback, you have to say, well, some of these two need to be 10 feet, and this is anywhere from 3 to 8 feet now, so I don't see that light bulb yet, Craig. You can always tell when it goes out.
Right.
Let me scroll back up here and you see where the measurements are that. Right down here. A survey here real quick. Bear with me.
So the thing that they propose, the new thing, is where on that?
So it was supposed to be 10 feet between the two and it's not quite existing and will be not, or not existing in the future.
Yes.
Depending on how you
So
measure it.
basically,
No, if I just did the average of the front, the average of the back,
Yeah, so-
added them together, you get, it's less than 10 to start with,
Colleen,
more less than 10.
Oh,
but
I see what you're
whichever.
saying, yeah.
that is correct.
Yeah, I
It's
see what you're
just
saying.
Much more complicated. So measuring the way quiet water historically measures, we would have one where we're actually asking for a reduction from 4 feet to 3.8 feet. And then on that side yard, let me point at that side yard over here, from 5 to 4.6. So this measurement here, which should be 5 feet, will be reduced to as little as 4.6. And this over here, because of the summing and the summing of, again, not a straight, I can't just add 3 for the front yard straight across. Is asking for a reduction on average of 0.2 feet.
When you say structural point in that, what are you referring to?
So in the city code, and we just tightened this up within the last year, we say, here's how you measure a setback. You measure from property line in question.
Is the property line considered the structural point?
No,
Okay,
the setback is from the property line to the structure. So we say from the appropriate property line. When we measure to the structure now, we say a structure is pretty much anything that comes off the ground.
right.
So if you have steps coming down from your front door, we're gonna include those steps.
Okay.
So the closest point of those steps to the
So that's
property line,
structural.
that's your minimum, that's your setback.
Step is, so you're going from the property line to the structural point, which could be a step, it could be, okay, yeah.
The quiet water
But
and
there is no, it's not that it's going from the deck to a structural, another structural point.
no,
There is nothing out there all around that house within some distance from the property line. That was a missing picture. It would have been helpful, but it,
no, and I'm trying to get it up here, and the problem is I'm having a lot of difficulty.
there was a
Yeah,
lot of
if you look,
information
if
there.
you look it up on like Google Maps. you-
Well, that's, I'm trying to pull that up here for
The
you.
houses are separated.
Yeah.
So, and as I guess that's all common area around those houses.
I was just confused on the
Yeah,
structural point.
In our vernacular, it's called limited common area.
Very good.
Hang on here.
Anything more?
Know what you want.
Me, I don't need it.
City,
In any case, though, I mean, one way to look at it is whatever the area, total area of setback should include in square footage, if you want to look at it that way. There's less of that with this addition.
And it wasn't standard to start with, and it won't be standard to end with.
Yeah, so that's the problem, is that it's not a very simple
No,
calculation, but it's, whatever it is, it's less.
right, whatever.
It definitely, it is less, and it's less than what the code would want, or quiet water for that matter, yes.
Yeah, within these cluster housing units, the requirement is to leave a minimum of 25% of the lot for open space. In other words, the property lines that you see there, 25% of it should be open space.
Right.
Quiet Water DRC looked at that and found that even with this addition, they met the 25%.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
okay, that's good to know.
And it's not right up against another house. There's this.
Does that help you? Billy? Sorry, that's what, we just upgraded to Windows 11, so I apologize. My computer's been fighting me over here. So the one outlined in blue is the lot in question. The white lines, those are the property lines. So those are the platted lots, privately owned. Everything that's not within those, open space, common area.
Thank you.
So the area in question is all surrounded by common lawn, if you will.
Okay.
Except to the southwest, as an adjacent parcel to the south.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Our
On three
neighbor-
sides, On 3 sides. It's
3 sides.
And I'm sorry it took me, I knew immediately what you were asking for. But it unfortunately, it took that long to get that picture up.
Oh, thank you.
So, and it's almost hard to tell from that. So the white area there towards the bottom of the lot, again, it's hard to even say compass directions. So that's north. There's relatively little impact within that blue rectangle.
Yeah.
There's no impact outside of it. That basically what's showing is white now, which is existing deck. The little less deck, a little more bedroom, bathroom.
So the lower right of that area is where it pushes.
Correct.
Let me see, I just thought of something. So the side yard that's being, that is smaller, at least by measurement to, how's this doing?
Here, Mark, I'm kind of pointing for you.
Okay, well, I'm looking at, is the side yard next to the house that they're next to, the one to the south?
No change.
There's no change on that
No
side?
change there,
Okay,
no change on this side.
okay,
So the two change here, but
okay.
the change here is just this half of the property.
Right, there's a sliver and it's gotten
And
smaller.
then this part.
There, okay, all right.
So the extent of the change would be basically midpoint,
So
this corner, and then
So the proposed change does not affect their neighbor's house?
correct.
Okay.
And that's where this whole separation of space, so that would have come into play if we were talking about this, because like the city code, it says you can't get right up next to your neighbor, where you can't even squeeze a fireman between the two. But in this case, there's no impact. There's nothing to crowd in either direction here.
Is there precedent setting in quiet water for this?
Yes, which is sort of how we know that the setback has been measured in this way that's non-city-like. Because there are things that extend into that required setback, namely steps and decks.
Yeah, that's a very complicated situation, is it, and it's hard to judge what people did in the 80s and how they were constructed. But in some cases, we have found things that are constructed in yards that shouldn't be there. And a lot of it is, I think that they could have related back to when the houses were constructed, they didn't lay them out properly on the lot. I mean, all kinds of things can be speculated upon. So the answer is yes, there are some deviations. They were not the result of actions of the current owners, but of the original builders or original owners. And in some cases, I doubt if they even knew it back then.
Are you aware of any time that that something like this has come before the planning commission before from Quiet Water?
No.
I'm not aware of one. I've
Okay.
had to go back.
Okay.
And in speaking to that, maybe because a lot of those were sort of designed to be the little weekend getaway.
Mhm.
So they were designed to kind of max out the lot when they were built.
Mhm.
I don't think that the phase one designers saw a whole lot of adding on. We're starting to see it. We had somebody just put the bedroom addition on because I think they're only the second household I know to attempt to raise a family in Quiet Water. You know, those houses just weren't really designed for that. And you can imagine pretty quickly they decided another bedroom was a must.
And that project, by the way, fit within all of the restrictions,
Yeah.
so it didn't come in front of the planning commission.
Okay. So, any other? I know, Dick?
I can reach.
Okay. Do we want to, I'm never sure how we do this. Do we want to open up for public comment at this point, or do we want to keep asking questions regarding the staff report?
The applicant is here. I think you can jump in. I will make myself available, obviously. And I apologize if we got to that in a more complicated way than necessary. I was having some technical difficulties.
Okay,
Both with my brain and my computer.
let me find out.
But I think Mr. Fletcher is also planning on making himself available.
I'm here. I'm ready anytime. Just hanging back in
I
the
think
weeds.
the first
for
thing
now.
he's going to show you is this picture, which is kind of why I didn't have it queued up.
Okay, so,
Mine's a little bigger.
Okay, go ahead. Rub it in.
okay, so, the public testimony portion of this public hearing is now open. I encourage anyone who wishes to speak either for or against or ask questions regarding the proposed variance application to now do so. Please direct your testimony or evidence to the provisions in the R1 district and the circumstances which exist that require the issuance of a variance as provided in chapter 9.80 of the Yachts Municipal Code. Failure to raise an issue based on these applicable standards for criteria during this hearing so that the Planning Commission has the opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude your right to appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission is first requested to identify themselves as wishing to speak, and when called upon, begin by giving your full name and address. Please give your mailing address. I will start the public testimony by inviting the applicant to please present his or her application to the Planning Commission, including how the proposal will comply with the applicable provisions of the Yahatse Municipal Code and any other relevant testimony that could factor in our decision. So, Mr. Fletcher.
That is me. Thank you very much. First of all, I wanted to say thank you all, the Planning Commission, for having this open meeting. I apologize not to be there, but school is back in session and my classes start next week. So I'm at home getting prepped and ready to go. I've still got a little bit until I'm retired. I am a pretty visual person, and so I am going to show you a bunch of images, and we'll talk, and you can talk about them and ask me questions about them as we go. I'll need to have access, Kimmy, if I can take.
I have shared my screen with you. Go ahead and you should see the button at the bottom.
Button at the bottom.
The
The
green
green
one that says share.
Allow to share screen. Okay, perfect. I'll do that. And let's see, large screen. Can you guys see what I'm looking at right now?
No, you'll need to bring it up.
Let's see. So I'm on my screen now. Let me go back and make sure maybe I didn't do this right.
Clicked on share.
So the green arrow down below. Click
And then
on
John,
that.
Then you should pick the screen you want to share.
Allow to share window, allow to share screen. I'm going to share screen. How about that?
give it a whirl.
And then it wants small or large. I'm going to go large. Screen. Nothing?
Not just me.
No?
Nope.
All right. So let me come back to this and apologize for this, folks.
No,
I
Jonathan, seriously,
do
I was
this.
struggling too, and I don't know, maybe it's something about the.
Maybe
room
allow
today.
to share window. How about that? Let's
If you
try
want to quick
window.
email me anything, I can throw it up here too on your behalf.
Can you see anything now?
No, afraid not.
Mm.
Want to email it to Catherine?
Any other suggestions? Allow to share window, allow to share screen. Catherine, do you want me to email them to you?
Yep, do it, and I'll get them up there as quickly as I can.
All right, give me just a sec here to do this. Come on.
I don't know, because I've never had that much trouble. Granted, I should have called it.
So let's see. I'm going to Go to inbox. I'm gonna go to, so Catherine, city planner. Try that again. Okay. Subject, images. Let's choose attachments. So Catherine, I've got 7.
Okay,
I'm gonna send you
I will,
3 and 4, just so I don't know how large they are, so let's
it
try.
shouldn't be a problem, Jonathan.
Okay. Well, it might be a problem on my end, so let's
Gotcha.
go the first 4, upload, and send, and then let's see, and then I'm going to write to Catherine. Images. Choose files, and let's go. So that was the first 4. What? No, we're gonna go there, shift there, upload. All right, second email is on its way. And Catherine, you'll see that they're listed. The first number is 0, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 images altogether. So let's go back to here and back to there. Oh, now I gotta find
I'm
my
sorry, Jonathan, is there a particular order? So I've got
0, starting at 0. Now I gotta
Got it.
find you guys again. Hang on.
Let's just work with this and then.
Yeah, I can't find my screen. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, I got you guys back at least. Did the emails come through?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So while Catherine's kind of figuring that out, and I appreciate that, Catherine, thank you. I'll just say, again, thank you for the opportunity to address the Planning Commission. I'm assuming most of you have had a chance to read my narrative on why we're asking for the variance. And I've done my best in my narrative to address point by point the necessary requirements for obtaining a variance. And I guess it's up to you guys to decide if I've done a good enough job on that. But the extenuating circumstances are there's obviously extenuating circumstances. Okay, perfect. So first of all, here is our little area of quiet water. And like I said, I'm a visual person, so I can't really, I can talk about code and I can hear setbacks and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't make much sense unless I can actually see it. This is our house right here, right in the very center. Oh, you can't, so Catherine, you're going to have to be my pointer.
Find you, just
Yeah, no, back behind you to the right. It's right. That's almost to the left.
I was on a house in Quietwater and I couldn't even find it from my front door.
Down below you. You're so close. It's that one.
Right there.
To the right. There you go. That's it right there.
I knew
Okay,
I had it,
so-
and it helped me to look at it. I
So that's
seriously, I
us.
left this little thing that said the Wilsons by the front door. That was the only way I could find my house.
And this gives you kind of an idea that we are surrounded, especially in the two directions that we're discussing, which is northeast and southeast, I guess. surrounded by that common area. That's just kind of gives you a visual. Let's go ahead and Catherine, let's go to the next image. The next image is just once we get there, it's just a larger version of this, but closer in on the property, so you can kind of see where it sits.
You don't have a good joke?
I don't. You guys can. I'm open to questions if he has them as we're going. If there's anything you want to ask me, please do.
I think that would be an easy flip, but
Modern technology, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? There we go. So there's our house right there. And I just outlined the house so you can see sort of where it is. That's not, the lot lines obviously are not on this, but you can see that we stick out into the common area on the two sides really in question. Okay, Catherine, you ready? Number
not
two.
at all.
Not at all. All right,
This
apologies.
might skip the second showing of this. No, I'm getting the hang.
One thing that you, oh, there we go. Okay, there's there's the lot itself. You can see it's kind of trapezoidal, and again surrounded by the limited common area on all sides, 3 of the 4 sides, and so that kind of gives you an idea of sort of what we're up against. The next one, I believe, is the I'm not sure what's next. I'll just talk about them as they come up. How about that? My script has gone out the window at this point. So this is a view from our deck towards our neighbors. So this is kind of looking into the direction that we're asking for the variance. And you can see there's a fair amount of distance there. And the next picture is the same.
I'm afraid if I go there, Jonathan, we will never find our way back to here. So unless it's critical.
It's not critical, but there are a few
driver.
more pictures that are critical. So we're gonna have to keep moving forward somehow. Needless to say, with a sort of a trapezoidal orientation and nothing being parallel, designing anything that would be able to fit on the property was very challenging. Ideally, we would have gone off the other end of the house, what's considered the front end of the house, and sort of done something in line with the existing structure, but there's just not enough room on the property to add anything. So there's really only one area on the property that allows you to add anything downstairs, and that is not that. Don't worry about that one, Catherine. Let's move on to the next.
The one that says there's nothing to show?
Yeah, we can forget about that one. So let's go to the plot. Let's go to the survey, number 5.
Gotcha.
Okay. There you go. So you guys have obviously seen this already. This is the current house as it sits on the lot. and obviously challenging because there's no particular room. The I would say what I consider, let's just call it the north side, where the front stairs come up. There's really no way to add anything in there without doing some serious disruption and putting the building itself envelope close to the lot line. So the front, or what I call the west, or the southern area where we proposed. No, let's go down to the other corner. That's really the only place that we can put any sort of enclosed space, a bedroom down below, and then that's what ends up pushing the deck into the setback area. All right, let's go to the next one, Catherine. Only two more. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
And these you've seen, I think. So this gives you kind of an idea of what the final product is going to look like. And obviously we're trying to make it look as if it had been there from the very beginning. We want to use the same materials, the same windows, the same everything. We want to make it look as if it was designed and built that way, in keeping in the spirit of Quiet Water, because we really do love Quiet Water. And then again, that drawing, if you look at it carefully, you can see that the enclosed space of that bedroom downstairs fits within the kind of the building envelope, that I like to call it, the building envelope on the setbacks. And the only thing that is encroaching into that setback area is the deck. So it just depends upon what you consider the building envelope and the actual residential structure, whether the deck is included in that or not. Catherine, let's go to the last image. I don't think it's anything new, but it's more just kind of what it's going to look like. And again, we went to kind of great lengths to try to keep it harmonious with the original building style, and but make it useful for our needs moving forward. So apologize for the disjointed nature of all of this, but I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. If anybody has any questions for me about any of the decision making or the structure itself, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer it.
I actually have kind of a strange question.
Sure.
I don't see any doorway from the main entrance into the bedroom. You have to go out onto the deck and then go in?
That's the only way that we could make this happen, unfortunately. If we put a doorway from the main residence out, you basically would have to have a pass through the living room, and the living room is so small that it would make it unusable. So so you have to go outside to get on into that area. There is another home in Quiet Water that has, I would say, nearly identical setup to this. And I'm assuming it was built several years ago. It's a reverse layout, so it's on the opposite side. And I'm assuming it didn't require any sort of variance, because they were able to fit everything into the available building space. Their lot was a little bit different shape than ours, but it's within a foot or two, nearly identical. Lauren, you know which one that is. I don't remember the number on it.
I believe it's over in LCA 3 next to the river, but I don't remember which cabin it is.
It's 348, 384.
48, yeah.
384 is so it's essentially the exact same thing that we're proposing to do. I don't have those exact measurements, but it looks essentially identical to what we're proposing.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Fletcher? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, let's see, where was I? Okay, I now invite anyone else who wishes to speak to this application, either for or against, to indicate their interest in doing so, so that they may be called upon. Is there anybody who wishes to speak regarding this?
No, not on mine.
Okay, there was a written submission, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's all of you read that?
One written testimony,
Okay,
which was in your packet. So.
okay, and Mr. Fletcher, do you have any have you seen that letter from, what was the person's name?
The Tweedle.
The Twitter job.
Yes, I did. I read it this morning, actually.
Do you have
Just saw
anything
it.
you wish to say, respond to that?
No, only in that, we're not asking to go into any sort of common area, and I certainly appreciate her desire to keep the charm, which I absolutely agree 100%. But I also, as I stated in my narrative, I feel like when this was originally designed, having 32 cabins that are, or 31 cabins that are essentially 2-story and one that's only a single story, it ends up being prohibitive, not only for people with any sort of disability, but for people who are growing older and don't want to tackle stairs or can't tackle stairs every day. So yes, I understand the desire and the need to keep everything as it was. Sometimes as it was may not have necessarily been, I don't want to say it's the appropriate choice, but there were maybe some deficiencies that weren't addressed way back when.
Yes, Mary.
Question for Warren. Didn't Dr. Linda Tweedle Johnson put a sun area onto her cabin on that?
Yeah, her place, this was done considerable period of time before I became even a resident there. But she did enclose, I think, what was an original deck location with a sunroom.
Great, thank you. So she kind of changed it.
Current head of the DRC. I see so little change in the footprint of this house that I don't, probably. So.
His name.
Can you
Can I-
give us, yeah, I'm sorry, could you, for the record, could you just give us your name and your address?
It's Mike Burke, and I'm current head of the design review committee.
Okay.
It's so, I mean, we're talking inches here, basically. I don't even see a difference.
I guess it depends on how you measure it.
Yeah.
It really wasn't until I got into it, then I'm thinking, what are we talking about here? And Lauren had pointed out the two different ways that this had been measured. And when I started looking at it, the quiet water way, if you will, it's like, gee, I think Lauren would have been the only guy who knew that it was off by 2 inches, to be quite honest. Sorry, I'll never try to pull one over on you, Mike, but it really, it got to be smaller and smaller. Yeah, but what can I say? Every 25 years is probably good practice for us to run through one of these.
Okay.
Thankfully, it'll be my last. Yeah,
Maybe another one coming up.
don't even say it. But really nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's me too.
Okay, any other public testimony regarding this application? Okay, so the public testimony section is closed. At this point, the commission will begin its deliberations. And well, since I'm talking, I will start. Okay, and forgive me if I've got this wrong, but according to what the code says, a variance may be granted only in the event that all of the following circumstances are met. Do they literally mean
That's,
all? There's
that's
5.
the test we apply every time.
Okay, all right. So under A, it says exceptional or extraordinary circumstances apply to the property which do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone as regard to size, shape, et cetera. And Mr. Fletcher's response to that was that because he has an odd shaped lot, that is, the fact that it's an odd shaped lot is making it difficult for him to place his addition within the setbacks. Now, my question or my comment is that looking at from what Lauren said, and also looking at the map that he put up in there of the property lines, it does appear that his property is not the only one in the area that is odd shaped. That there are a lot of properties in the area, or not, well, actually most of them appear to be not rectangular or evenly shaped. So I don't know that the fact that this property has an unusual shape, which I would agree would make it difficult to do anything with it, but the fact that it is an unusual shape meets the criteria of being an exceptional or extraordinary circumstance, unless I'm not looking at
Well, it
it.
doesn't say it has to be unique.
It does say it has to be,
It's not like the-
it does say extra, well, I know, that's why I'm kind of putting this out there, because I'm not exactly sure what they're trying, when they say exceptional or extraordinary circumstances.
If we look at it in relationship to other lots in the city,
That's true.
it's definitely exceptional. There's no question.
That is true. So then my question is that how broad do we interpret this? Yeah,
How general it is.
yeah, how general, I mean, you know, I in Quietwater, in that particular area and his neighbors, it does not appear to be that exceptional. If you're talking about the city as a whole, or even Quietwater as a whole, I would imagine the other lots are more evenly shaped. It's that cluster housing area, that plot or whatever it is, seems to be exceptional in all, for all of them.
So this is going in the direction of saying, if somebody that's came up, one of those other shaped lots,
Yeah,
to be consistent, we should,
well,
this is not acceptable.
yeah.
So, Lauren, how many of the cottage clusters are there versus how many regular lots are there?
Oh, don't, on your buzzers.
You know, I really can't answer that, but the clusters, as Combe Circle begins its sweep northward, that point starts what we call the platted lots.
Right.
And those platted lots occupy normally the higher space, and all of the platted lots, with the exception of two that are at intersections, are regular shaped R1 style lots.
So if we looked at the general lot distribution, it's approximately equal between the regular shaped lots and the.
I would guess that's the case based on the number of lots. I wouldn't say that the area of the two the square footage totals would be the same, but roughly I'd say, yeah, half the lots are platted lots like a regular R1, and half the lots are more like this. Just a guess.
I'm just thinking about how exceptional is exceptional, and
Yeah.
historically, the city, I remember 2 variances that were ever granted in the history of the world. And one was for our wastewater treatment plant. It exceeds 30 feet in height, because if we had not done that, we would have had to replumb all of Yahas. And so that seemed extraordinary and exceptional. And there was one other up on East Third Street, but lately, let's just say it's been more maybe along the lines of what Craig's saying. It's less than the norm. We're on variance number 3 this year so far. So, I don't think we heard 3 variance applications in a decade for such a long period of time, because that standard was so hard to meet. I would just point out, it is the property and not necessarily just the lot that is supposed to sort of produce the hardship. And I had a lot of trouble with the math because of the angle of that house on that lot. combined with the fact that the quiet water standards say the setbacks for front and rear are the sum of the two. So you try to put anything larger than a napkin that's square on that, and there's just no place to put it. Because we started out not square, and so maybe the shape of the lot's not that extraordinary or exceptional, but then you put the house on it kind of at a bit of an angle, and then you go from there. And before you know it, what I see is unusual compared to some of the neighbors, I guess, is that there really isn't a deck size or addition size regularly shaped space left on the lot. You got little bits and pieces. It sounds like they've already gone to some extraordinary lengths to make the traffic flow work in this. But some of the others that we've talked about, the recent addition that I'm thinking that just went on where they were able to get the bedroom on there and sort of beat the FEMA hammer, there was still room left within those strangely defined setbacks to put something that was sort of shaped like a bedroom. And I didn't find it on this one. In fact, it really, if you want to make a second grade math problem difficult, this was it.
If I may, I hope it's okay that I sort of interject here. I guess I'm also in trying to answer that question. I don't know what standard you put to exceptional and extraordinary. That's a seriously moving target depending upon who's interpreting that word. So there is no defined this equals extraordinary, this equals exceptional. I was looking at I was looking at our lot compared with all of Yachats, right? So we are in front of the Planning Commission for Yachats, not for quiet water. So I don't know if it's fair to single out our property and say it's not unusual because there are other lots like ours. I would agree with the assessment that it is for Yachats writ large, it's an unusual lot. It's an unusual circumstance. You have to decide whether it fits the definition of exceptional and extraordinary. I'm not sure where that boundary line is. Part of what I am trying to do is make a home that's livable for us moving forward. And I think that situation maybe adds to the exceptional and extraordinary for the reasons that we're trying to do what we're doing. So I guess that's my 2 cents. If you can object to the exceptional extraordinary, I need to know where that line is. Where's the line in the sand? And maybe I can make an argument for it, but
And that's exactly why I brought it up, is that I don't really know, to be honest. I don't think there is a fixed definition of what a fixed numeric definition of when something becomes extraordinary or exceptional. But and I'm not saying that you don't necessarily meet the criteria. It's just the way that you phrased your response was kind of, I don't know if it really met the criteria or not. Certainly, if we look at the city as a whole and don't just think about your neighbors, that you are correct, that your lot is, and the shape and the circumstances of that lot are different than a lot of the city. If we're talking about that particular area or community or that PUD, then it's not quite so exceptional or extraordinary. And I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, it's a judgment call. And I was just throwing that out there to make sure that I understood what the rules are about that. And I think
gotcha.
We can discuss further what it is, but yeah, in some ways it is a subjective, it's a judgment call. Because there's no number that we can come up with that says, if there are 50 other properties like yours in Yachats, it's no longer exceptional. I can't say that. Or even within quiet water.
What else is exceptional if this one is?
Yeah.
There's a lot of others.
And plus it's its own PUD, so it
If
can.
they're all like this, then I don't want to play math anymore. That's all.
Yeah, I know, I don't either, and so I think that's something we have to try to decide, ourselves.
I would say that it does appear that it is for the locality, that it's for that specific zoning and that area. But I would say that it's exceptionally, and we should be prepared that then we will be potentially having more that want to come in with the same.
Yeah.
Or,
21.
Yeah.
Yes,
How would we know that it isn't exceptional until would absolutely survey all the lots in there? So as far as we know now, because it has come up before us, it seems exceptional to me.
We looked at the
Maybe
map,
there's a
and
few
there
others,
was-
but they haven't necessarily been surveyed yet.
well, but we have
We saw the map.
yeah, we have the map, we can see the shape, it has to do with the shape of the lot.
Yes, I understand that.
So I don't know. Yeah, it depends on how big the circle is. If you want to include just the cluster houses, do you want to include quiet water? Do you want to include, everything on north of the bridge? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of asking, I guess. And I don't think there's any fixed answer to that. But I don't know.
should we go on to 2?
Yeah. So okay, then B is, necessary for the preservation of a property right of the applicant substantially the same as owners of other property in the same zone or vicinity possess. Yeah, I guess. I mean, he wants to add on to his house. Other people can add on to their houses. I don't really have a strong objection to that, to what he's doing. Does anybody else have any questions about that one? Okay, the variance would not be materially detrimental to the purposes of this title or to the property or in the zone or vicinity the property is located, and otherwise conflict with the objectives of any city plan or policy. I don't see that being a problem with this one. I don't think it's gonna change anything. And the variance requested is the minimum variance, which would alleviate the hardship. Okay, I'll go along with that. The hardship asserted on a basis for the variance does not arise from a violation of the zoning ordinance. It does not. So,
Yeah, in the staff response there's no zoning violation. That's one of the few that's actually not subjective.
Okay. So, anybody else have anything they want to say or talk about on this one? Okay, then I need a motion from somebody. Yeah,
I
Mary?
move that we grant the variance and allow for more than 1 year based on the FEMA changes that are occurring with the idea that Quiet Water and their design review committee can quash it if they want to. I guess that isn't exactly a good term to use, but
Sounds good to me.
So the code says sort of it's an automatic up to 1 year for a variance, but says maybe extended for an additional year. So you want to make it an even 2 years on so you already sort of have the built-in power to extend that 1 year given to 2 years. don't mean to amend your motion, but then,
The motion to include 2 years extension for
because I
FEMA.
can tell this new guy's gonna be really hard to work with, so I'm hoping we can get this all done before. No, just kidding.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, I'll go down the line. Commissioner Abbey, Commissioner Goslin,
Approve.
Commissioner Hogan,
Approved.
and Chair approves as well. And with Commissioner Dickinson abstaining. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your fine detail and attention to everything. Thank you all.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda, I believe, is the Cornelis partition, the final plat. Dan, I believe this was yours. And as my reading of this is just like a final approval of it. There's not really any big hearing or anything we need to do on this one. Is that correct?
That is
Oh, okay.
correct. Your code says that you held a public hearing on this application last month and approved it. This is the final plat. In many communities, the code makes clear that approval of the final plat is a routine administrative action handled by staff. Your code says that once it's submitted, the city planner sends it to the planning commission, and the planning commission shall take action on it. It does not require a public hearing. There's no notice to the public, etc., because all of that was provided for last month's proceedings.
Yes, Mary.
Dan, I have a question. I know at one point in the information that you gave us, it said that the title was Michael's, right? It was his title. He was the title owner of it. Isn't it in a trust? Is that correct? It's a trust?
The application that was submitted back in late June or whenever that was indicated that Michael Ornelas was the owner. It appears based on this property that he's the owner as the trustee of a trust. I mean, that's the way my house that I'm sitting in here is owned by my wife's and my trust technically, but it is our house.
So,
How does that affect it? Is
Well,
that a
it just-
concern?
It's just, when you look at legally, if we're writing things out, saying the owner it's a trust. It's listed on the property as a trust. I'm just wondering. Making sure we've got all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted.
Here's how it's addressed on. He signed it at the attorney's office, was as trustee. We're up there.
so I guess,
To make sure we're.
yeah, so I guess the question is, Dan, is the approval as drawn now, because it says, the owner of the property is Michael Ornelas. Doesn't say trustee. Is that going to be an issue, or I'm asking?
In this case, I don't see it's an issue. I would have, if you want to make that change in the order of approval, no problem. We'll make the change and get a new copy for Mark to sign tomorrow.
Okay, well then, why not then? Okay, so we'll change the owner of the property to Michael Ornelas trustee? Is that,
Or the owner of the property is the Michael Ornelas Trust. The applicant is the trustee of the trust. That's the way I would do it. The owner of the property is the Michael Ornelas Trust, if that's and I looked to Stephen Swinehart for the confirmation of that is the correct name. And
Is that the correct name?
applicant is Michael Ornelas as the trustee of the trust.
Okay. Okay, so with that change to the order, anybody else have any questions? Good point, Mary.
There's one other point that needs to be made and should be part of your approval motion. I don't think that it's will affect the order of approval at all, but the final plat that you've got in front of you shows a 5-foot wide utility easement running along the east side. Mr. Swinehart has informed me that the electric utility is now saying they want a minimum of a 10-foot easement instead of 5 foot. So my suggestion would be to approve this with the condition that the width of the underground utility easement may be different, because quite frankly, who cares?
Okay. All right.
And then when they work that out for the final, then it'll get drawn at the appropriate width.
Okay.
Should we approve it for that?
Still provision.
Provision in, yeah.
Okay, so do we need to just, for the record, just say that we are going to, if this is approved, it will be with the following changes, that the owner of the property is the Michael Ornelas Trust, that the applicant is Michael Ornelas as trustee, and that the, what is it? What's the term? The underground utility easement may be greater than the 5 feet that is indicated on the survey. Is that
I think if the motion included those 3 things, that would be perfect.
okay? Does anybody have anything else they wish to bring up about this? I'm just gonna ask for a show of hands. Is that, or do I need to do a roll call vote for this too?
It's fine, you can go ahead and do a show of hands.
Okay, okay, all those in favor of approving this change with the changes, say aye. Aye, okay, we're done, good. That's it. We're done, right now with Mr. Ornelas. I'm sure he loves coming here, but as happy as we are to see him, I think that is it.
Right.
Is that correct?
So Mark, just so you are clear, your code says that you need to wait 11 days after this decision before you can sign the final plat. So that'll give Mr. Swinehart time to figure out what the width of the utility easement is, and if necessary, to get a revised recordable copy back to City Hall for you to sign on 19 and 11 is on August, no sooner than August 30th.
Is that acceptable? Okay, all right.
Be until September the 2nd,
Okay.
at the very.
I will sign how's that? You've been emailing them to me, right? To get,
I won't be emailing them on Saturday, the 30th.
okay. Okay.
So if it comes to us, I'll be sending it over to you for signatures
It-
on Tuesday.
Okay,
It will-
okay.
September.
Surveyor, Mark, you'll be signing the Mylar or whatever material. You know, this can't be an electronic thing. This is the actual signing, the plan that will be taken to the county surveyor for review and then recorded at the county recorder's office.
Okay.
The original, you know, stable copy, and yes,
You still have to wait the 11 days,
is
right?
the 30th, that is a Saturday, so. And I assume that Monday, the 1st is probably Labor Day.
It is,
Yeah.
so Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 2nd is the earliest the code allows you to sign it.
Yes.
Okay. That's it. Is there anything else regarding this? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. Moving right along.
Just curiosity. Could Mr. Fletcher have replanted either his individual lot or a series of lots? Those are not the original lot layouts. They were already replanted.
In 1980,
Yes. Wagner, I believe, replanted Fletcher's lots. I did the ones to the east. I also did some of the hillside lots. And I did something I had never done before, and I've never seen anybody else. We replanted or replanted. In the early 80s, the economy was tanking. Mr. Combs that did the subdivision. And property that was not selling. And they came up with a cluster idea. And that seemed to be working. So they have already gone to a replat. And I wonder in Mr. Fletcher's case, even as one lot, I've never seen that done, but it's Quietwater. If it doesn't make more sense, if he had to go through the process to change his lot lines, would that be allowable?
I don't know.
no,
No,
No.
no, I guess not. I'll defer to the
it's
next.
true, it did go through several replats. There were bankruptcies, and every time the project tanked, it came back to the city and tried to sort of salvage some of it. But no,
You cannot replat.
not to build a deck, no. Anyway, I gotta get going here soon, so can we?
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
okay, okay, Commission chairs meeting, let's see, the library, I don't know if you've seen the pictures, they're putting the drywall up. For the public works, mostly emergency stuff, they're fixing up the connexes some more. They're looking at using the campus for emergency housing. Also looking for talking to the restaurants about food in case we have emergency housing. Let's see. Most of that, Parks and Commons, the noxious weed. We're still working on signage for that. And actually, I think that's pretty much that just for public consumption. The planners report.
I don't have anything. I'll get you something next month. This was sort of our transition month to
Okay,
my return, so it's hard to know who did what, or maybe nobody did anything, but that's our secret. And we'll be back to normal next month.
okay,
I shouldn't promise things like that. We'll get back to my usual next month.
okay, good. Okay, the issues list, the item number 1, the schedule of training, I'm gonna close that one. Just because, we're kind of, I think we're kind of gonna put that on hold for now. So I don't think there's a reason to hold that open for now. If we can always, see the need for training, we can talk about training, but right now, I think that's gonna be hold. The wetland inventory, any updates on that?
It's in the capable hands of me and Department of State Lands. Let's just push that, or let's say council is paying enough attention that you guys can take it off your list and just turn it loose for council.
Well,
Under tremendous amounts of pressure to get that completed.
I'll just keep it on my list.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't hurt for me to hear it
Okay,
daily.
okay, let's see. I don't know that let's see, a lot of this stuff is pending Cascadia Partners. Let's see, Cascadia Partner, Noxious Sweet, we already talked about. Craig, at one point you were talking about looking into water conservation.
I have some questions about it. Some of them were answered.
Okay,
I don't think we have any, like, concrete.
yeah, do we need to have a concrete? I mean, how do we want to approach this? Because, of course it's summertime and everybody's talking about running out of water. What do we,
Well, I don't know, I mean, so I didn't prepare for this, but but from what I remember, summer use goes up in the summer,
yeah,
but there's still not a huge amount of total use from outdoor water, even this.
that kind of would make sense.
I think it's mostly from people like visitors flushing toilets or taking showers and stuff like that. So the outdoor water wasn't a gigantic effect.
Okay. Has the city ever had, or has the local, has there ever been a water conservation push, like, giving away shower heads and low flow?
Yeah, we have an attic full of them, don't we?
Yeah.
Fine, get one. Yeah, there's been.
Okay.
But the other thing is it became less urgent because we got the water up to the northern utility. So
Yeah, but-
So we don't have to worry about our reservoirs.
Well,
They're dry.
as someone put it to me, if it doesn't rain down here, it's probably not raining up there either.
They have more streams in the utility.
Yeah, but
So it's
I mean,
emergency.
we do need to think about
There's a long-term.
a long-term, like,
Long-term, can't let it go.
yes.
That's true.
It's true. So,
Long-term planning. Have to keep our.
and I think the major user of water is the hotels, right?
Yeah.
So it's the washing of the sheets and whatever.
Right, so there's efficiency issues. I have no idea. What those are.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any efficiencies to be gained there, except maybe, but a lot of hotels, at least when I was traveling for, had that thing where they don't necessarily change the sheets every day unless you tell them to change the sheets every day.
Volunteer to go stay someplace nice here and check it out, report back.
That's okay.
But this is an example of something where, so it's just an intention.
Mm,
It helps.
yeah,
They're out there.
is that, because I don't think the public,
I am about to run out of steam, so I'm just gonna put that out there, because this is a conversation I would love to participate in,
okay,
but I don't feel you need me right now.
Okay.
So
So
I have a question for you, which is, what are we doing about restaffing the commission full staff?
Yeah, so I thought about that quite a bit with Lauren's dual hats today. Hate to say it, but gee, in my many years as chair, that was not staff's responsibility. That sort of fell on the chair. Just do some recruiting.
So that's the answer.
and I've been trying and I haven't gotten anybody yet, but if you guys know of anybody who you think,
So we should do that. We should.
Are there any applications?
No,
What should we tell
it's
people?
available all the time. So there's an application online, they can go on the city website. And it's kind of a one size fits all application, but you can check, I'm particularly interested in whatever. I'm sure we can also get something in the newsletter if somebody wants to write a little blurb for this next newsletter,
Okay.
touting all the many benefits of being on the planning
it's
commission.
been exciting
Yeah, don't tell them about, the great
Okay, there-
perks.
Yes, how exciting is this?
You provide.
We can act on it, or how do we-
What's that?
as soon as we get an application.
Absolutely, we'll jump all over it.
Right.
And, yeah, and Bobby loves a good. I mean, we can
We have a new
get
process.
something on one of the Yahats community, the Facebook page. Maybe on the village.
There are other commissions that have openings as well, right?
Yeah, but we're kind of the critical one. Some of those don't really ever need to meet because they're made up. I mean, we can't function. It's like today, I was concerned if we don't have a quorum.
No, I know,
We're
I know.
under some pressure because we did postpone this from last month because there was a last minute kind of tweak to the. But that 120-day clock starts ticking, so I was sort of prepared to start polling you guys and see when we can get a special meeting in there. If we're not able to just keep it rolling, and historically, we've had long stretches of time where it's been long. And you hate to just hand somebody a yes on a brain dead screen because we can't get a couple of people together.
What's the requirement?
The,
We need 4 people. So if we lose one, we're.
so with Lauren being
Well, that.
kind
that's
enough.
Exactly why I notified
Yeah.
everybody that I was going to recuse.
So if one of you guys had fallen out, so I sort of had the calendar at the ready to say, okay, what are we gonna do to keep this on track? Because we can't kind of do this a month at a time. 120 days requires start to finish, including time to appeal.
We should get some.
Yeah, we should have a reserve.
So, okay, so, maybe Mary, you and I can look at coming up with something about sticking the newsletter about.
Double offer them whatever. No.
But the best way to do this is of course, for people you know. Or even if you don't know them, I don't. Oh, yeah, they just have to live in the city. And they have to have lived here, what, 6 months?
It's
Yeah, and then,
for, yes, a year. Maybe. I really, with the 100 meetings now,
Yeah.
There was a time when I had something the first Monday, second Tuesday, third Wednesday. Look at the calendar for a year and it was hard to ever get out of here for a week at a time.
so,
We can make it as gentle on folks as need be, so it shouldn't take over your lives.
so if you know somebody that you think would be a good fit for the commission, by all means, talk to, 3 people already that I've known. And for one reason or another, they haven't been able to sign up, but I'm still looking and certainly if you guys know somebody.
It is I say it shouldn't take over your lives, but it is we have to take it a little more seriously than,
Mhm.
Parks and Commons or something where the state doesn't really care if they ever meet because they don't know they exist. And so I'd rather we be a little bit selective and get somebody who's a good fit, because you guys are a bizarre bunch, but somehow it works. So, make sure
Now,
only the right person into submission.
I think that is.
Because that's.
Yeah, unless anybody has anything else, there is a other business thing on
No,
the,
I got nothing.
no,